We've got a neat machine in here today. This is the Singer 320K. So today's video is going to be about setting the hook timing on this machine, and this also relates sort of in general to any sewing machine hook timing really, and also other specific models such as the 306K, the 319K, and this 320K obviously. Also there's a couple of other notes about this machine in as far as the needles, types of needles that it takes and bobbins. So let's have a closer look at this one here. This left hand piece comes off here just by clicking the button there. We can slide this base here off, and you can see there that leaves us with a free arm here. Now you can leave this right hand side of the base on, but let's remove it anyway. Take that there off, just slides off nicely like that. Date of this one 1960, model 320K, 23,000 of them made. One of the problems you may come across with a sewing machine is it'll skip stitches or miss stitches. So you'll get this sort of thing here where you'll get a stitch that just hasn't picked up, and you'll get like a long looking stitch. Or if you're on zigzag, you'll get this sort of thing here where you might see it goes straight on one side of the zig or the zag there. You know, there's several reasons for that sort of thing happening. And one of the reasons is it could be that the hook timing's out in the machine. The other reasons can be that the needle bar height is incorrect. You could be using the incorrect needles. The needle could be damaged, bent, could be blunt. Yeah, so there's a number of reasons why a machine might miss stitches. Now this specific machine, along with the other ones that I said before, the likes of the 306 and the 319, they take a specific type of needle, and they differ slightly from this is the standard universal needle that most domestic machines will use. This is the 130/705H style universal needle, and often I see these machines come in and they are breaking needles and misstitching and playing up. Generally I find that they've got these standard universal needles installed. Now these are the ones that should be used in a machine like this. So these are the 206/13 needle. You'll see there's SY2029. I think that's the number that Singer would use, system 2029. And these are a slightly different needle. It's quite subtle. So hopefully you'll be able to see there that you've got the standard universal on the left hand side there, and you've got the Singer 206/13 on the right. And you can see the needle for the 320K on the right there, the 206/13, that has a shorter tip. The needle on the left there, that's the standard universal needle with the longer tip there. That causes an issue where the point of the needle is actually too low and can collide with parts down under the plate and cause the needle to break, especially when reversing. We'll start here by removing the presser foot here. And I've got a brand new 206/13 needle in there, so that's the correct one to use with this machine. I'll just remove the bobbin case while I'm here as well. And while I'm doing that, I'll just explain to you also that this machine takes a specific type of bobbin. This is quite often referred to as a 20U bobbin, and I think that is a reference to a Singer 20U sewing machine model. But the general part number, if you're looking for these, you'll probably find them under part number 55623, and quite often they may have a couple of letters after that, like of AQ or NS. I don't think that has any bearing on it really, but yeah, just that part number. So yeah, make sure the correct bobbin is installed as well. That can cause all sorts of issues. Anyway, let's get the plate off here. You remove the plate just by lifting this left hand edge here. Now you do have to be careful when lifting the plate that it doesn't flip up and bend or damage the needle point there. And then remove the plate there. Here we have the hook under here. You've got the base positioning finger here, and we'll come in for a closer look here. So here we have the hook and base here, and when I turn the hand wheel you'll see the hook turning there. Now the hook, we'll have another close look at this, but this is the actual hook point right here, and you'll see that that rotates around, and that is the part that picks the thread up off the needle at the correct time, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about hook timing. If we have a look in from above there, okay, let's give this a wee clean out here while I'm here. So we're looking, that's the front of the machine. You'd feed the material in this way, so we're kind of on a 3/4 view here. I've threaded the needle there just to make this a little bit clearer. So the way that the hook in a sewing machine works is that when the needle comes down through the material and travels down to the bottom dead center, the lowest point of its travel, as the machine keeps turning, the needle bar starts to rise, and then the hook will come along. You'll see the hook coming through there now, and at that point there will be a loop forming. So I've just relaxed that thread slightly to simulate this, and so there you can see the hook coming through, and it picks up the loop off the back of the needle there and carries on around its way there. If I put the bobbin case in there, we can actually see what happens when you draw the thread up. Needle bar comes right to its bottom point there, and you'll see the hook coming around, picking up the loop, and then takes the needle thread around the bobbin case, and there take up levers coming up, and there we have the bobbin thread there, and that is how the bobbin thread is drawn up. You can see the way that hook's working, and you can see that the timing is essential really. You need to have a certain amount of needle bar lift for it to form the loop to come through there. So that's it in a nutshell really, but there's a couple of things to consider. Before you go setting timing, it's a good idea to get your needle bar height within cooey of where it should be, and on this particular model and its related models, that's quite easy to check. If we take the faceplate off here, just the one screw, take that off. So this is looking in from the front angle there. I've just increased the exposure there to make it a bit easier to see. I'll just give this a quick brush out here. So the place we're looking at is the top of the needle bar bearing here. Now you'll see a little indicator in there, and that indicator indicates needle bar rise. Just to note that I'm checking these settings when I've got the machine set to straight stitch, not to zigzag at this stage, and also I've got the needle in the center of its travel. You will see two marks on the needle bar there. Now that upper mark is the point at which the needle bar will be at bottom dead center when it lines up with this indicator here. So we've got a little bit of parallax happening here, so I'll get the camera down a bit further. Okay, that's about it there. So you'll see that the needle bar goes to its bottom position and lines up with that little mark there. Now this little indicator is adjustable as well, so you can't always rely on this being absolutely correct. There's another way of checking that, but this will get you your timing. So what you do is you turn the machine until the lower mark lines up with the indicator. Like that. At that point, the tip of the hook point should be in line with the center line of the needle. Now we're looking straight onto the hook here. If we have a look where the hook point is, it's right there, and the needle is over here. So you can see that the timing's actually out on this machine, and so that distance, we need to close that distance there So the hook timing here is retarded, and we need to advance that up to the needle there. So we're looking in directly from behind here, and you can see the hook point just there. It's quite away from the needle there, center of the needle, so we need to bring that up. And that's done by loosening screws here on the hook shaft there. You might also be able to see a little bit of thread caught in behind that hook. Yeah, a little bit of thread there. There's a bit more. Sometimes thread can get all jammed down and behind there, and it's almost impossible to remove without removing the hook itself. Okay, so we've got one screw, two screws, just the two screws there. So there's a couple of other things to consider here as well, and that you can, if a machine's been messed around with, the feed timing can actually be 180 degrees out. So what can happen is you can have the hook timing correct, but you'll have a situation where the machine will try and feed while the needle's down in the fabric, which is completely wrong. Obviously you want this is looking side on here, they're down under the plate at the moment, coming forward, rising up and starting to feed the fabric back now while the needle's out of the material. And then you'll see the needle come back down, and as the needle's coming back down, the feed dogs will lower down under the plate, and the cycle just repeats there. And you'll see if that's wrong, if the needle's down in the fabric and you see these feed dogs coming up and raising above the plate and trying to feed, you'll know that that's wrong. That's set in a different area, I won't go through that today. But the other thing to consider also is the needle bar height. We're basically judging by the little indicator on top. We're kind of assuming that that's correct, but the indicator's not always set correctly either. When the needle bar is at its lowest position, you might be able to pick out the needle eye just down here, and you've also got this chamfered part just here, this surface here, and where the chamfer turns into a vertical, so there's like a lip or an edge there, the needle eye shouldn't go lower than that. There should be room there so that the thread doesn't trap. And the other thing is, with a zigzag type machine, you want to be sure that when the needle's on its left hand throw here on this particular machine, it depends which way the hook's running, but on the throw that takes it across furthest from the hook as such, you want to make sure that the hook point is above the needle eye at that point there. So with it on its left throw, you'll see the hook come across there, and you don't want the hook to be interfering with the needle eye, so you want it to come in above the needle eye. There is a specification for that. It might be easier to explain that on paper. So if we're looking side on here, and this is all to do with needle bar height, we've got needle here. This will be looking from the left hand side of the machine. You've got the needle with the scarf cut out of the back of it down to the point, and this is the front of the needle here, comes down, and then you've got the eye comes through from front to back, let's say around about there. So that's the needle eye. The thread will come in here, loop will be formed like that. That's our thread here, and the hook point will come through at this area here. So when the needle bar has risen the correct amount, which we got from the indicators and behind the faceplate there, the hook point should be in line and behind this area here. Now the little chamfer that I was talking about on the base of the hook there should be coming in around about this angle here. So that's static. That's a fixed. That chamfer is always fixed in place. So when the needle bar gets to its lowest point, so let's take that out, the needle bar at its lowest absolute point there, you don't want the thread being, you don't want this going any lower than this edge of this chamfer here, because that, if the chamfer was up here, say, that would be trapping that thread coming out of the needle eye. So you don't want that, and you don't want the needle too high either, because then the hook might come through. Instead of up here at this point here, coming through here, it might be coming in down here and actually, colliding with the thread coming at the back of the eye there, and actually snapping thread and all sorts of issues, missing stitches. You can have the needle bar so high that the the hook could be coming in down here relatively, and that's just going to miss this loop here. That's where the hook needs to get through this loop here, and that's just going to miss the loop altogether there. So as far as the left to right, you've got your needle, let's just simplify this a little bit. You've got your needle in the center there, you've got your left, that will be the left hand throw, and then this is if you're zigzagging or using the machine with the needle off center. That's the right hand side there. So the hook's coming in this direction here. So if the needle's on the right hand side, the hook's going to come in sooner than if it's on the left hand side, because it takes longer for the hook to get around to this left hand side here. And what that does is, so if you're on the back of the needle, you've got the little scarf, this little cutout here that I was talking about before, that the hook comes in behind. That's sort of roughly this area here on this needle. When the hook comes into the center line of this needle on the right hand throw here, it'll come in a lot sooner. So the hook will kind of be at this area here, coming in this area in this direction. If the needle's in the central position, by the time the hook gets there, it's coming in a little bit lower, like that, in that direction. And by the time the hook gets to this area, it's coming in quite low, that direction. And you don't want the needle bar to be too high, therefore the hook will be coming in relatively like this, and completely come under the eye, as I was saying before, and completely miss the loop. The thread's coming in the front here through the hole and out the back, forming the loop, and so this area here is where you want your hook to come in through. If you have the needle too high, the hook's going to come in underneath the needle eye and miss stitches. If you have it too low, let's use this one here, if you have the needle too low, the hook will be up here relatively, and you've got your thread coming in through the needle eye, through, this is looking front to back here, and the loop will be out the back like that and coming up, and so the hook will come in over, so it needs to sort of come into this area here, it will come in over the top of the loop and completely miss it. Generally a machine is designed so that if you have this chamfer point, just at near the bottom of the needle eye, somewhere around there, but not too far up into the interfering with the needle eye, the needle bar height should be about right. As I say, there will be a specification for that. Yeah, so hopefully that's clear. I could probably set something up so that we could get a closer look on video as to what I'm talking about here, and just try out the different scenarios. So bring the needle bar down to bottom dead center, and then back up to its timing marks there. Okay, that's at the timing mark there, and then we'll loosen the screws here. Well, that screw was loose. I wonder how the other one's looking. That one's quite loose as well. Well, I think I can see why this machine's timing was out. These two screws holding the hook onto the hook shaft are loose, so that's not going to help. So I'll loosen that one there right off, and we'll come around, loosen that one, so now the hook is able to move on the shaft there quite freely, and get the timing in the right place there. Now while I'm doing this, I'm also setting the clearance between the back of the needle and the front of the hook. The clearance I'm talking about there is this clearance here, this movement. So you don't want the hook colliding with the needle like that, and you don't want it too far away either, otherwise it'll miss stitches, it'll end up outside of that loop. So you want that to be close but not touching, and the general specification for that's about 0.1 of a millimetre. What's that in thousandths of an inch? Work that out. There's a handy conversion chart on the back of this calculator. 1 inch, 25.4 millimetres, so 0.1, so 25.4 divided by 1000 is 0.254, so 0.1 mil is 4 times that, approximately. Yeah, so it's 4 thousandths of an inch is the clearance there. So while I'm setting this timing, I'm also taking that clearance into consideration. It's probably actually better to look at this from behind, because the hook point should be in the center of the needle, and you can't see the center of the needle from in front. So I'll just swing this right round. So you want that to be in the center, just that hook point in the center. Just partially doing that screw up to give me a little bit more, so that it doesn't just slop around on the shaft there. Just bring that back there. That's where we want it to be, right there. So I'll go ahead and tighten those screws up there. 1, 2 there, and there we have hook timing correctly set. So just to explain a little bit further what I was saying before about this being a zigzag machine, and the fact that you can have the needle in any position between the left and the right of its throw there. So we're looking in from behind there, so the needle's in its central position there. I'll just move it, so that's the right hand and left hand throw there. So on the right hand throw, you can see the hook coming in quite high. You can just see the needle eye below the hook there. So the hook point is a wee way above the eye of the needle there. If we move to the central position, and you can see there that the hook's coming in a little lower on the needle there, and if we go right across to the left hand throw there, you can see that the needle eye is actually quite close to the bottom of the hook point there. But in all three positions, the hook is coming through on the scarf of the needle. When I talk about the scarf of the needle, this is the front, that's the blade there, needle eye, and you might be able to make out the scarf just above the needle eye here, this area. That's called the needle scarf, so that's where the hook comes in behind the needle there. So one thing with setting the timing on a sewing machine is it's not just a matter of setting the needle to the left hand side of its throw and bringing the hook around so that the hook comes in just above the eye. I mean, that's how it should look when it's timed correctly and when the needle bar height's in the correct place. But If the needle bar height is incorrect, that will be an incorrect timing. So you have to make sure your needle bar height is set correctly before you do any sort of timing that way. It's not a very accurate way of timing a machine. I talked earlier about the correct needles to use for this machine, and if we have a look at the Universal 130 705H needle, Universal, let's just put one in and see what we get there. Just remember that these have a longer point than the needle that you should use on this machine. And if we have a close look here, go to the left of the throw there, you might see as this is the strike off plate here, and you'll see a little cutout in the back of the strike off plate coming along here, and the needle goes down into that gap there. Now it might not come across on camera very well, but it's getting quite close, and if there was any sort of deflection or anything like that of the needle, you could that needle point could hit that strike off plate. There are definite needle strike little pits here, just in this area here, little pits there where the tip of the needle has hit this area and caused scoring and pitting on that, and that more than likely will be the cause of the needle breakages. So I'm going to go ahead and service this machine and give it a good oil and clean. I hope you found that helpful. Thank you very much to my patrons on Patreon. Molly received a donation. Molly, you've received viewer donations. Look at this. This was kindly donated by Cheryl and Harry. Big fans of yours. Thank you very much for this, guys. Molly will appreciate it, I'm sure. Viewer donations. Oh, she likes that one. Thanks, guys. Wow. Yep, she really likes that one. You can have the other half later if you're good. And Molly and I both thank you very much for watching.